Hello and welcome to Talk Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment. Tonight, we're at the Black Lion Inn in Kilburn. I'm Phil Dave. Here's what's coming up.
If they just stick to their remit and go for impartiality and not force views on us.
No, but I mean, even that as an example, the individual in question here, how pathetic to make that about race. I wait till they get till about here, and then I say, look out!
Look at the head on that.
But do you mind? And as ever on Down the Local, first job for this evening is to say a very warm welcome to our panel. And my, what a lineup we have for you. First up, we have former Labour MP and Reform defector, that is Mr. Simon Danczuk. Welcome, Simon. We also have Stephen Barrett, a barrister and commentator, no less. And absolutely last but not least, we have Charlie Rowley, who's a political commentator. Welcome to you all, gents. It's great to see you. Now, this is actually going to be very simple. Normally, the first thing we do on Down the Local is establish what everyone's having to drink. Well, we're all having German beer, but it's one that I can't really pronounce. So it's not that I don't want to advertise them. If I find out later on what it's called, I'll let you know. But one way or another, that's all we're having.
Very good.
Yeah, no, it's quite tasty. So first up this evening, I thought we'd start off with the lighter topic, the BBC licence fee. Look, I have been really personally disenchanted and disheartened by what I've seen on our state broadcaster recently. And probably for the first time ever, given that I have openly declared before that I worked there for a total of 10 years, it wasn't the BBC that we see now.
No.
And I just can't help but start to wonder if maybe the licence fee is a bit of an outdated format that something needs to give.
I would say so.
Yeah, I think it has to go. The BBC has degraded over my lifetime, over our lifetimes. I was focused on the major con, which is we'll have intellectual programs on BBC One. Oh no, we'll have BBC Two. That'll do intellectual programs. Oh no, actually BBC Two will do frothy programs. We'll have BBC Four. That will do intellectual programs. And now BBC Four is full of ABBA. Now I love ABBA, but it's not intellectual, is it?
But you still watch it. I refuse to pay. I don't pay the licence fee. I think it's
legal reasons. I have to say we don't condone that because sadly, but anyway,
fair enough.
if you watch this,
I think there are legal
Well, I
ways.
don't
to-
watch-
there are legal ways around
I don't
it.
watch it.
No, there are
Yeah,
legal ways
that's
around
right.
it.
I don't.
No, but I think it's any live TV. Is that? I mean, Stephen,
Yeah.
you're the legal.
Oh no, I've not looked at this. I'm not going to go into that.
It's the most regressive tax that there is because it's set the same amount for whether you're rich, poor, anything in between. You pay the same amount. It's regressive.
The idea it's going up, I think, is a bit ridiculous.
185 is going up.
Something like that, yes, yeah. I must look into it myself just to make sure that we're all paying. But it's one of those things, I mean, the BBC was set up to inform, educate and entertain. And as long as it does that, and I think if it informs people in the right way and educates people in the right way without having a political agenda attached, then I think it's fine. And I do think there are some good programmes that the BBC has, but I can't...
Don't you think so? There should be. You know, if there is literally nothing on the BBC that appeals to anyone, then there is definitely something pretty majorly wrong going on. For my personal issue, I just simply don't like the way that the news channel has become so unbiased. You know, so biased. You know, it's supposed to be unbiased. Damn it.
Yeah.
And yet, it's just see the situation where it just seems to be obsessed. Like, how many times do we need to hear about the situation in the Middle East? Most people worry about whether or not they can pay the bills. They don't care about what's going on in the Middle East.
Or sending your senior reporter to Iran to praise the regime is really, you know, beyond the pale for most of it.
Loads of fault with it, but it's outdated. The system of payment is outdated, isn't it? Make it subscription. If people want it, they can subscribe to it. It's as simple as that. But an important point: people at ITV once said to me, what ITV didn't want them to go advertisement wise because they'd have competition selling advertising space then, wouldn't they? So
I think
subscription.
ITV got enough competition on that front, haven't they? Let's be honest. So.
Yeah, but no, subscription I think is the way forward.
The thing about, I think the problem with the BBC is that the idea of balance, they've lost the idea of what balance is. Balance is, is making sure that the report is fair. It's not saying that if you lose 10-0, that, one team scored 10 goals and the other team, but they tried incredibly hard and they had a bit of possession here, and you can't big up the team that's just been thrashed. If a team's got thrashed, they've got thrashed. But you have to report things accurately. But they've, I think, attempted to say that balance has to just be equal parts.
Well, I get
than
really
facts,
nerdy about
you
this
know.
because balance has replaced impartiality,
That's
and
it.
the
That's
old,
what
the
I'm-
old
yeah,
and
exactly,
better test was impartiality, and it's actually Ofcom's fault that impartiality doesn't work as a test. And I don't want to bore people because this is the pub and we're having fun. But it just trust me, it's Ofcom's fault.
Well, I'm sure Ofcom would deny, but even so, I mean, might I say that here is my issue, is that where you've got an agenda that says we have to appear a bit more diverse. Now, look, we are 4 white blokes sat around a table on this show this evening. I'm fairly sure someone out there is going to be watching thinking, this is outrageous. This is not diverse enough at all. Personally, I say screw you. But I would say that I simply don't understand why the BBC have compromised quality in the name of diversity. And that's what appears to have happened, certainly to my mind anyway.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely unavoidable. That's what they've done in order to sell this agenda. But it's pointless. I mean, it really upsets me when I have friends who are talented but happen to have an identity characteristic, and then they feel as though they're being sort of abused for that identity. Their only value to the BBC or to any other organisation who follows this DEI nonsense is in their identity characteristic. I am not valuable, or I hope interesting, although that's entirely up to the viewers, because of my sexuality. I'm not. That can't be. I'm very proud.
But
of that.
also, what
a bit of
an
a prude.
insult! Yeah, but what an insult to individuals who maybe do identify one way or another to say, actually, no, it's not really about your talent. You don't have the talent. We just want you because you tick a box. I think that's the biggest insult. I think it's now time to find out what the punters think.
I think it's worth it if they just stick to their remit and go for impartiality and not force views on us.
Do you feel that maybe there's an element of the BBC that is forcing views?
I think it's been proven that there has been an element where take for instance the Gaza-Israel war, where I can't remember who actually did the investigation, but they were found that they had breached their own regulations 1,500 plus times. So I think on that basis, yes.
Yes, I mean, I consume BBC content pretty much all day, every day, and it's such a trusted source. I think it's really valuable. I think it's worth the licence fee.
Yeah, I think it is. I think they show a lot of good documentaries. They show some quite good dramas. Yeah, I think they do okay. They plug everything to death, you know, gladiators. Why?
I'm going to be honest, I plug my shows to death, so I'm with them.
Well, it's got to be done, hasn't it?
Next up this evening, gents, I wanted to speak to you about queuing, because the other day, I was queuing very patiently to get on a train station escalator, right? So on the Underground, there are, sorry for anyone listening outside of London, I know this is not interesting, but on the Underground, there are various escalators, and at some stations they get considerably busier than others. And I was being a very good little commuter. I was queuing, I was waiting to get on the escalator, and there were these individuals who I'm going to very politely call cretins, who just decided that queuing was, you know, too good for them. You know, it's as far as they were too good for queuing, rather, and as a result of it, they barged past. And I stuck out my umbrella, and I held them. I said, excuse me, we're all queuing to get on here. Off you go. And they looked at me as if I'd gone insane. You'd literally think I'd threatened to attack them. That is what they looked at me like. Well, I mean, I've had that look a few times, to be honest.
It's quite controversial, this, isn't it?
I want to know whether or not am I the only one who's obsessed with queuing?
No.
Yes.
The most British thing.
What do you mean, yes? Does that mean you've never queued?
No, I have queued, and I'm a great believer in queuing, except there are instances where you just don't queue. So at the bar, you do not queue
true.
at a bar in a
No,
pub.
no, that is
I pride
important.
myself on the ability to get to the bar and get served before anybody else. And I'm not
doing a round and around for this episode.
yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I wouldn't queue at a pub. And the underground.
Well, Stephen's empty.
And I wouldn't queue on the Underground as well. And I'll give you an example. I'll keep it brief. At the lifts at Edgware Road Tube, and there were these old ladies stood there, people behind them, but there's a big gap in front of them. So me and my wife, she was following me, just snuck in front of them, ready to get in the lift. Because on the Underground, it's every man or person for himself. Now, we get in the lift, there's about 20 of us in the lift, it's completely full.
2 dead old ladies behind him.
No, they got in. Everybody got in. That's the point, you see. Everybody got in. But this guy, this Asian, Pakistani probably guy, Kashmir or whatever, took offence at this, and he said to me, he said, "What are you playing at there?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Pushing in." I said, "What? It's every person from side. Everybody's in the lift. What does it matter?" And he said, "Is it white privilege?" And I said, I think he expected me to say, "Oh no, it isn't." I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Have you got a problem with it?" I'm not being challenged. His wife calmed him down because it could have got.
No, but even that as an example, the individual in question here, how pathetic to make that about race.
About animals.
What the actual
What a waste
hell?
of bloody time.
My wife, who's black anyway, she was loving the drama actually. She thought we were all going to.
You overtook. You didn't push it. You overtook them. That's all you did. You didn't push in. You didn't jump the queue.
There was space.
Because there are people that are slightly slower than others, and on the underground, you've got you've got to get from A to B.
It's a cool question, isn't it? We the British love queuing when you have to queue. But you're right. Pubs, you don't have to do it. And when I was in year 11 and I wanted to get a sausage roll and an ice bun at break, I was all elbows akimbo, and I was going to get served before those sausage rolls ran out. And there are certain times when we don't. And I think it's our dual nature as the British, that there are certain times when we're terribly, civilized and very high decorum and we don't say things. And then there are times when we say sorts of words that otherwise we might not say at other times.
Well, I hate queuing. I absolutely hate queuing. As you can tell, I don't queue very often. VIP sort of red rolls. I don't need to queue. Look at this. This is my entry. But the worst thing about other than queuing is the people that
There's a very great difference between not having to queue and people running scared sharply around it. So.
But I've just come back to we're in a German pub, I think, or we're drinking German beer.
We're not in a German pub, but we are drinking.
We actually won in 1945.
Well, I've just come back from Berlin, and I know Brexit, everything, which people reference, which is inaccurate, that we had to queue to get through passport control. It took over 2 hours to get in just through passport control in Berlin, which was a disgrace because they only had about 2 people on the kiosks or whatever it is, deliberately, in my view, to stoke the fire of people saying, "Oh, this is all because of Brexit," and it isn't, because we still let people come through our e-gates where they don't have to queue. That is our.
We let people cross the channel as well. That's another story.
Well, the Brexit airport queuing is hilarious because I flew to Dusseldorf with an entire craft full of British people before Brexit in order to teach them German lawyers how to do advocacy. We all had to stand in the EU only queue because we're all British. So we ended up in a massive queue.
Yeah.
Whereas the non-EU queue, you just swung through that. I mean, I was tempted. So it's always been a nonsense idea, but on the whole, queuing, I think, is something I would be proud of as a British person.
Well, no, I mean, the other day, for example, and this is apart from the escalator anecdote, there are several examples of this, because as you can tell, this is a major bugbear of mine. I get really, really hacked off when people don't respect the fact that someone's waited in line for something. I was at a restaurant. It's one of these sandwich bar type places. You go up to the counter, you order what you want, they make it in front of you, and off you go again. I basically was waiting very happily for quite a while, and I was quite peckish, I'm not going to lie. So possibly there was an element of me being a little bit hangry, who knows? That's hungry and angry for those who don't speak modern lingo. The point being is that I was very patiently waiting in line. This lady who was in front of me, absolutely fine, no worries. She was ahead, started ordering. Then a friend of hers rocks up and starts ordering ahead of me. And I said, "No, excuse me. I'm terribly sorry, but I was here first. You're very welcome to wait until I've ordered, but please do not jump the queue." And she started laughing out of nerves. She was really shocked that I'd confronted her like that.
Good on you.
But I was absolutely not having it. I was hungry. I was actually late running back to work because I was only on a break. And I thought, to hell with you. How dare you? Like, what is the matter with you? I'm sorry, it's not your friend's job to hold. But if they were going to wait until the friend rocks up, wait behind me.
But being British is knowing when you should queue and when you shouldn't queue. You queue in a bank, you queue in that cafe restaurant that you were in. You don't queue at the bar in a pub. you don't queue on London Underground.
I think you do queue if it's the right, because again, non-Londoners won't know this, but we don't use the escalator the way normal people use escalators in London.
Please stand on the right.
We have to stand on the right,
Makes me furious.
and the left has to be empty. So
Yes.
it's one person per stair on the escalator.
Face the direction of travel
and so you get-
hold the handrail.
Exactly, but you get a queue for the right. If enough people get out, you get a queue for the right. And I think that is an instant where you queue. I would queue.
Yeah, well, let's see what this lot
If
think
you
about
want to go
queuing, shall we? All right, I'll see you in a sec. Sorry.
Get some beer.
I'm a big queuer, and I think it's the right thing to do. If you get there first, you know, you don't want somebody pushing in front of you. In fact, today when I was getting on the train, the door came just by me, and I managed to kind of like shuffle forward in a delicate way to get to the door. But next to me was a bloke with a walking stick who'd been there for a while, and I could see that if we all got on the train, he was going to be, you know, pushed. And so I tapped him on the shoulder, and I stood back and I let him go. But I was right behind him.
Is she naturally that nice off camera?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Ruby?
I always queue unless it's at the bar. Yeah,
Nothing gets between you and a drink, right?
I suppose so.
Oh dear, I can't help but notice 1 or 2 empty glasses, so that can only mean one thing. Well, it's not empty, they're almost empty. It must be time for a round on a rant. Could I please get 4 pints of the Munchner, and then I'll also get 1 pint of lemonade with blackcurrant, please. That'd be marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. Right, what I want to have a chat with you about this evening is very simple, is this. People looking down at their phones when they're walking along the pavement. Honest to God, what is wrong with people? Come on. If you are walking along the pavement and there is a chance that you are going to bump into somebody else, will you please watch where you're going? It's very simple. I've got this great trick, by the way, and I strongly urge you to do this as well. If I see someone who's coming towards me, they're doing this, okay, I know that I've got cards, but just imagine it's a mobile phone. They're walking along like this and they're not looking where they're going. I wait till they get till about here, and then I say, look out! And you'd be amazed how they jump up. Stop looking down at your phone. There is literally nothing more important than watching where you're going in the grand scheme of things. You do not need to look at your phone whilst you are walking on the pavement. Watch where you're going and be considerate to others. Wake up, Britain, come on!
Look
Here we go.
Excellent
Nice
stuff.
one.
Right, okay.
Fantastic.
So we've all gone for the same thing. I still can't pronounce the name of the German beer. I'm really sorry, but we're having the same, which is
Look
great.
at the head on that.
But do you mind? And then not only that, we've also got a lemonade and blackcurrant for producer Adam. So can we just acknowledge producer Adam as well? So
Producer
there,
Adam,
thank you.
yes, great man.
Marvelous stuff. Let's get that tray out the way. Lovely. Splendid. Good grief. Never actually, hang on a second. I need a sip of this. Sorry, I can't just have this sat here. That's ridiculous.
Well, cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
That's lovely. Okay. So, work ethic is where I'm going next. Because I'm very lucky in the job I do. I'm responsible for some of the hiring and maybe some of the firing, but less firing, more hiring. And one thing I've observed through the generations is how work ethic differs. And it was almost as if those who are considerably younger, it's not they don't work, because I'm absolutely not going to disrespect some of the younger colleagues of mine who work damn hard, but there are 1 or 2 who sort of have a very vague difference of attitude where they seem to expect stuff almost, if you like. And I think this is actually endemic across the nation. I've got my theories, but how do you think work ethic has changed over the years? Dare I go to you first, Simon?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with you again on this. I think it's a bit like your queuing philosophy. I don't think it's changed that much, actually. I think we have a real problem in terms of getting people back into employment, but that's a different debate. But I think young people generally, where I've employed young people previously when I was an MP and when I had a business, mostly were just as enthusiastic as anybody else.
So I think that there is a change, and I think that what's happened is that in the old days, like Simon, many young people left school at 16 and started work because, you know, we've chatted about that. And so you were probably a bit work shy at 16, but you got it knocked out of you much, much earlier. Keeping young people in full-time education until 23, 24, 25 is not going to increase their productivity because they'll get so used to laziness.
That's interesting. So you see, my perspective on it is I actually blame, and I'm very sorry, Simon, but I blame sort of like Labour government of old when Tony Blair was all about education, education, education. Now, fair enough. Okay, this sort of ties into what you're saying. But I was thinking, Charlie, it was more because we were telling successive generations, look, you are perfectly entitled to do whatever you want in this life. Now, look, I'm going to level with you. I loved the idea of being a surgeon, but I am not academic in the slightest. So I knew full well medical school was out of the question. There was no way I'd be able to do that.
I wouldn't let you examine me, for sure. Not later.
I can't say I blame you, but to be honest with you, I've had that reaction several times. I don't think it's anything to do with medicine. But the point being is that I've also, I just can't help but think that if I had been told you could be anything and then I'd opted for going into medical school and then flunked, how would that make me feel? So even that is a separate argument itself, but it's more about this idea of saying you can do whatever you want. No, you can't. You have to work within your means. And actually, there's nothing wrong with working in your means.
Well, you should have tried harder, shouldn't you?
That's
a very
It's a bit harsh.
But I think I do. I think you're absolutely right, and I think Stephen's absolutely right. I remember, look, when I was 18, just about
2 or 3 years ago.
only last week, if you don't mind. And I remember
The spring chicken of the group.
Yeah, but I remember being so get up and go, and I remember also if I didn't get into university, if I didn't get the A levels that I needed to get, then that was fine. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I would have put on a suit, and I would have hopped on the train, and I would have gone to the City of London, and I would have made the teas or coffees in HSBC. I would have tried to chat my way into the city and worked my way up. I knew that's what I was going to do, and that was my. What I just had in mind. But to be ambitious enough to go and get up and do that, as it turned out, I got into university. And I think you're right. It sort of drills out the ambition in you because the pace is slower. It's a lot more thoughtful.
I don't think there's anything wrong with failing.
No,
we've sort of demonized failing. It's almost like failure is something that we need to protect society from, which is absolutely, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it's absolutely right? I'm sorry, but failure basically builds resilience, no?
Yes, and if you don't fail, you cannot have resilience. And a lot of our kids don't have resilience. There's a second dark force at work in our society, which we do have to flag up, which is called HR. Okay? Applying to graduate jobs right now is probably the hardest task in human history. I mentor a lot of kids from poorer backgrounds into universities, to read law and then into jobs in law. And the amount of effort that goes in just to completing the application. It's not the old days were fine. A CV and a covering letter worked, but these applications are made excessively complicated, largely to justify employing more people in HR. I mean, that's all that's really happening. But that too has a very depressive effect on the young people. So that when they finally get a job, they're golden children. And they probably don't want to be told to make the tea or, shush and learn something.
No, but I would have done anything to learn from people, to work my way up the ladder, to be successful. But the only thing I would say, and I don't want it because you've got 4 people, including yourself, obviously, that I think there's also...
Thanks, yes, I do exist.
It's also...
You're a real boy.
Yeah. I think it is an aging as you get older, but I also think it's a standards issue. And I think when you've got, former MP, barrister, former special advisor in government.
Are you?
We are former. There's
Current broadcaster, remember that.
Yeah, but there's a work ethic that you sort of have a standard that you work to and that you accept, and you are comfortable enough to know it's not about necessarily working harder. It's always about working smarter because you're experienced enough in the tooth to know how to. But when you get people that aren't even willing to go the extra mile that we would have done, to put in those hours to look at that case late at night, to stand up for those constituents.
I think there are generations that always make this argument that the new generation are different or aren't as enthusiastic about employment as what we are. And I think that's gone on for generations. I think there's different kinds of people in every generation. Some who are work shy, some who aren't, in every generation. That's that's the difference.
I don't want to push down on the young people. I genuinely think that their task of getting jobs is heroically difficult.
Oh, yeah.
And it has to change. But I think our society exploits the young. Sending them to university is largely about getting that $9,000 loan.
Oh yeah, I agree with
Well,
that.
there's
little
yes,
bit of the
but there's
institution on
that.
their money.
But actually, I think it's worse than that. It's getting them out of the way so cheap labour can
Yeah,
squeeze
that's
through.
also true. Yeah.
And on that delightful and happy and positive note, I'm going to see what the Punters think.
Yeah, I would say mine is good. I like to feel proud of what I've done, but I also have to be interested in the work in order to feel motivated to do it.
So it begs the question, are you interested in work?
Yes, at the moment, yes.
Alas, we have come to our final discussion for this evening. And as I was walking past the train station just now, suddenly dawned on me as I walked underneath a bridge. Who's dawned? There was. How many of them you had, for goodness sake?
I just think filming this after 47 pints was a bad idea.
Graffiti. I saw a whole load of
graffiti,
it
yes.
underneath the bridge.
Yeah.
Personally, I can't stand graffiti. I think it's a blight on society. I think it makes everything look messy. But there are some people who say, "Oh, no, it's artwork." What do you think?
Well, I think some of it is artwork, or really appreciated. Some really smart street art. Banksy is the most obvious example, isn't he? But you see some really impressive stuff. But some of it is just awful, and this tagging where they put their initials and things. I'm no expert on this matter, but some of it is truly awful. And the stuff that you see on, talking about underground, on the tube trains, I think is despicable.
Can we talk about that? Can we admit that the underground is absolutely covered in graffiti?
Yeah,
So
And
I have to take,
propagandists.
well, so you see, I have to take the National Rail because I live out in the sticks, and as a result of it, I've seen brand new trains worth about like £1 million each. They were only been introduced, I reckon, within the last 2 months, 3 months. Some of them already sprayed with graffiti. Who thinks that's acceptable? Seriously.
I get the Bakerloo line, and the train pulled in this morning, absolutely covered in it. And some of it was actually attempting to be pretty.
Yeah.
So I will concede that there is the possibility of art, but inside the carriages, and they also scratch on the windows now.
Yeah.
Do you know this? Have you seen this? They scratch the little totems, and it's a breakdown of the rule of law. I don't want to be boring, but it is a breakdown of the rule of law. We will end up in mob rule. This is broken windows. We need the Mayor of London, or our Mayor of London, who is willing to actually stop graffiti. Stop it. Stop petty crime. Stop phone theft. Then we can stop the stabbings, because they're going
Zero tolerance. Yeah, I agree with that.
It's the only way. And
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a left-right issue.
No.
I think everyone's sensible on the idea. Would agree with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's sensible people.
I think human beings agree with that. It's very simple. I don't care what one's political stance is. And look, I think that sort of regardless of whether or not some might be forgiven for thinking that everyone around here leans to the right or even is right of centre, I would argue that there's no politics involved in this. It's very simple. It's just about what's decent. And if you're using a public service, everyone has to use that public service. Why should it be defaced? Why should it be vandalized? And then everyone who has to suddenly start paying more in the way of fares because they have to pay more cleaners to get rid of this nonsense. I just can't stand it. And I don't understand why it's okay.
No, but you're absolutely. But that's the point. I mean, I would hedge a bet. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I would hedge a bet that the people that go on the tube, that don't pay the fare, that jump through the barriers, are the ones that will end up littering on the tube, the ones that will be ending up causing the graffiti, that will be the ones causing the crime. They are partners that we need to obviously deal with. Because you're right, it's a public service. We all want to use the tube. We all want to get on it, knowing that it's safe, that it's actually something that we can all accept. Not having somebody's initials or the scratch windows it's a depressing sight.
It's a depressing sight. It's purely selfish, and you end up in a terrible society if people are just going to be selfish. One of the best things I ever had, just a joyous moment in my life, was I was in Lincoln's Inn Fields walking back towards Lincoln's Inn, and there was a crisp packet about 6 meters ahead of me. And I was like, oh, that's awful. I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to put it in the bin.
You had to walk her over to it.
And then there was a man in front of me in an immaculate suit, about 10, 15 years older than me. So given he was coming out the inn, probably a very eminent person. and I just clocked him, but I'm like, I'm going to get that crisp packet, I'm going to put that crisp packet in the bin. This very eminent, very distinguished, very, very rich looking man simply bent down, picked up the crisp packet and put it in the bin before I could get to it. But that was like, that is the society we live in. And you don't have to be very wealthy to litter pick. I go on litter picks with all sorts of people in our society. I think litter picking makes society better and graffiti makes it worse.
Yeah. But we shouldn't have to litter pick, should we? We should have to more respect.
Yeah.
If you go to Denmark, I always remember visiting Denmark, and if you dropped something on the pavement, some litter on the pavement, people would literally challenge you about it.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah,
Denmark is incredibly beautiful.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if any of you have ever been lucky enough to go to Japan, but I mean, that is a classic example to me of how society can and should behave. Honest to God, they're not even allowed to chew gum. They're not actually even allowed to smoke cigarettes in certain parts of the public spaces, because if you walk along the street and there's a risk you're going to throw the cigarette butt on the floor, that then they don't risk it. So they actually have designated smoking zones outside. This is not even like here where you can just walk along the street and do whatever the heck you want on that front.
But what London needs is this zero tolerance. Who was the mayor of New York who introduced zero tolerance? So, but
got in
quiz
trouble,
question.
Really,
Giuliani, was it?
Oh, yes.
the one who ended up getting it.
But
he was absolutely right.
That's what
And
London needs.
I think that's what Layla Cunningham's plan is. And,
For reform.
fair play to her elbow. This mayor is clearly not going to do it. And look, I want to be fair to all potential candidates. I don't think there are any other named candidates, but I'm sure
We're not in London mayoral election period, so that's not a problem on that front. But the point being is that I just don't understand how this kind of mindless vandalism, which it is in my humble opinion, is widely accepted.
But there is, I know it sounds maybe a little bit, light, but environments, well, there are certain people that make environments. So the people that skip the queue, that don't pay the fare, that do the graffiti, they cause the environment. But then it is the environment that does an impact on all of us. So I've never done it, and I wouldn't do it because it's not in my way. But if I saw a field full of litter and I was just eating a Kit Kat or any other chocolate, and I would be more inclined to just drop that on the floor like everything else. So an environment can impact on the
Perpetuates it.
It perpetuates, exactly.
Well, I tell you what, we seem to be in a relative agreement here, and we're possibly a load of fuddy-duddies. Let's see what this little thing, shall we? Is graffiti a work of art or mindless vandalism?
I think it depends. I think some of it looks nice and some of it doesn't.
What doesn't look nice to you?
Just like random tags on random bits of wall.
So what would a graffiti artist have to do to say, yeah, that looks really nice?
Lots of colours, just a bit of kind of thought gone into it.
Oh, mindless vandalism. And don't get me started on Banksy. When did that become art? I appreciate what it is, but when did he stop being a vandal and become Banksy?
Criminal damage, that's what it is in the law world. That's what it is. And it's just generally an eyesore.
Oh, unbelievable. Our time at the Black Lion Inn has come to an end, gents. So thank you very much indeed to Simon Danczuk, to Stephen Barrett and to Charlie Rowley. Of course, thank you very much indeed to the marvellous staff who've looked after us wonderfully this evening, and of course to all the punters, to you at home for sticking with us for the duration. Thank you very much indeed. And please remember, until next time, do drink responsibly. But from me, Phil, Dave, and from all of us here at the Black Lion Inn, cheers!
Cheers.